Elon Musk didn't abandon Mars. He chose the fastest path to make Mars inevitable. If you're a Tesla investor or a long term believer in Elon's ecosystem, this matters more than you might think, because what looks like a change in destination is actually a change in sequencing. And that sequencing quietly accelerates everything. In this video, I'm going to break down why Elon is now prioritizing a self sustaining city on the moon, why this doesn't weaken the Mars vision, and why this shift is deeply bullish for SpaceX, Tesla, and long term investors. This is not space news, this is civilization level strategy. Good morning, everyone. Kin here. Recently, Elon Musk stated that SpaceX is now prioritizing building a self-growing city on the moon before Mars. At first glance, that sounds shocking. People immediately ask, did Elon give up on Mars? Isn't this contradicting what he's been saying for years? But once you step back and look at the full picture, you realize something important. This is not a retreat. This is a refinement. The destination has not changed. The order has changed. And understanding that order is the key to understanding Elon's true strategy. Let's start with what is actually happening. Elon has said that a self-sustaining lunar city could be achievable within roughly 10 years. Meanwhile, a truly self-sustaining city on Mars is more likely a multi-decade project. He has also been clear that Mars development would begin within 5 to 7 years, running in parallel with lunar efforts. So, Mars is not cancelled. Mars is not postponed indefinitely. Mars is simply not first. The first priority is establishing one off-Earth civilization that can survive and grow on its own. That single objective explains everything. Now, the obvious question, why the moon? Why not go straight for Mars? The answer is not romance, it's not symbolism, it's not which planet is more exciting. The answer is iteration speed. Iteration means build, test, fail, fix, and try again. Iteration speed is how fast you can repeat that cycle. And in technology, the side with the highest iteration speed almost always wins. On Earth, this is exactly how Tesla beat legacy automakers. Tesla did not start with perfect cars. They shipped early. They gathered real-world data. They improved software, batteries manufacturing, and hardware continuously. Meanwhile, legacy automakers move slowly, with long product cycles and limited real-world feedback. Tesla's advantage was not just talent, it was iteration speed. Elon is applying the exact same principle to space. The moon allows launches roughly every 10 days, with travel times measured in days. Mars launch windows happen about once every 26 months, and travel time is roughly 6 months. That difference is enormous. If something fails on the moon, you can redesign and try again in weeks or months. If something fails on Mars, you may wait years for the next attempt. So if your goal is to rapidly mature life support systems, power generation, construction methods, robotics, and closed-loop resource production, the moon is the logical place to learn. This is not about which planet is better. It's about where learning happens fastest. Once you see that, the strategy becomes much clearer. Elon's top priority is not getting humans to Mars. His top priority is establishing one self-growing off-Earth civilization, a place that can survive even if Earth resupply stops. That changes the framing completely. The moon is not being developed as a tourist destination, not as a science outpost, not as a symbolic achievement. It is being developed as a civilization backup. Think about that phrase, civilization backup. It means that even if Earth experiences catastrophic events, asteroids, pandemics, nuclear conflict, or extreme climate collapse, human civilization does not fully disappear. That's the bar. And the moon is simply the fastest place where that bar can realistically be reached. Now, here's where another important misunderstanding appears. Many people assume the moon is just a stepping stone to Mars, a temporary pit stop. But Elon has explicitly rejected this idea. Mars missions will be launched directly from Earth, not from the moon. The moon is not a refueling station for Mars. The moon is its own independent civilization node, and that distinction matters a lot. The reason is simple. The moon has limited fuel resources. Using it as a major refueling hub for interplanetary travel is inefficient. Instead, the moon's role is something different. It's about becoming an industrial platform in space, which leads us to what actually gets built there. Not just habitats, not just domes, but power plants, resource processing facilities, manufacturing factories, and eventually massive data centers. This is where the story starts to feel less like science fiction and more like industrial planning. And one of the most important pieces of this industrial plan is something called a mass driver. A mass driver is an electromagnetic launch system. Think of it like a giant railgun that uses electricity to accelerate cargo along a track and shoot it into space. No chemical rocket, no massive fuel burn, just electrical energy. Why does this matter? Because the moon has 1/6 of Earth's gravity. Launching cargo from the moon requires far less energy than launching from Earth. That means materials mined or manufactured on the moon can be sent into space extremely cheaply. Not people, cargo, metals, components, construction materials, fuel precursors. This turns the moon into something very different from a base. It turns the moon into a space factory, and once you have a space factory, you unlock an entirely new economic layer. Orbital construction, space-based manufacturing, large-scale infrastructure in orbit. Suddenly, SpaceX is no longer just launching satellites, it is enabling an industrial ecosystem beyond Earth. This is also where Starship enters the picture in a big way. A moon-first strategy creates enormous, continuous demand for transport, habitat modules, robots, power systems, mining equipment, factory components. All of it needs to move. That means Starship flying often, very often, and high flight rates drive costs down. Lower costs create more demand. More demand drives even higher flight rates. A classic flywheel. And this is where I want to pause, because what we've covered so far quietly leads to something very important. Moon First is not slowing down Mars. Moon First is building the machine that makes Mars affordable. But that part deserves its own deeper breakdown. So let's continue from there in the second half. For now, take a moment and think about this. Elon is not choosing between Moon or Mars. He's choosing the fastest way to make humanity multiplanetary, and that difference changes everything. Moon First doesn't slow Mars down, it quietly makes Mars inevitable. Because once you've built a system that can move massive amounts of cargo cheaply and repeatedly to the moon, you've already solved most of the hard problems. High volume manufacturing, rapid launch cadence, reusable hardware pushed to its limits, operational discipline at scale. When the Mars launch window opens, you're no longer experimenting, you're deploying. This is why prioritizing the moon actually accelerates Mars. By the time SpaceX seriously ramps Mars missions, Starship will not be a prototype. It will be a mature, mass-produced transport platform with thousands of flights of operational experience. Costs will already be compressed, failure modes will already be mapped, supply chains will already exist, Mars will inherit the full weight of that progress. Now let's step back and look at this through a long-term investor lens. What Elon is building here is not a series of missions. It's an infrastructure stack. At the bottom, you have energy generation, automation, and manufacturing. On top of that, transport and logistics. On top of that, self-sustaining cities. And eventually, an interplanetary economic network. This is not about planting flags. It's about owning the operating system of off-Earth civilization. And this is where Tesla quietly fits into the picture. Tesla is not just a car company, it's an energy company, an automation company, and a manufacturing systems company. Batteries, power electronics, AI-driven robotics, autonomous systems. These are the exact building blocks needed for self-growing cities, whether on Earth, the Moon, or Mars. When you view Tesla and SpaceX together, you start to see a single long arc: energy, automation, transport, and intelligence being scaled beyond Earth. This is also why Elon keeps talking about iteration speed across all his companies. Faster learning loops compound over time. They don't just make better products, they reshape entire industries. Tesla reshaped EVs, SpaceX reshaped launch economics. Now SpaceX is positioning itself to reshape civilization scale infrastructure. So, when people hear Elon is focusing on the moon first and interpret that as hesitation or retreat, they're missing the point. This is not about playing it safe. This is about compressing timelines. It's about turning decades into years by choosing the environment where learning happens fastest. Looking forward, here's the future I see forming: a self-growing lunar industrial hub, Starship flying at airline-like frequency, costs dropping with every iteration, orbital infrastructure expanding rapidly, and then, when Mars missions scale, they won't feel experimental. They'll feel operational, predictable, repeatable, industrial. That's when Mars stops being a dream and starts being a destination. For long-term investors, this matters deeply because the biggest returns don't come from reacting to headlines. They come from understanding architecture, from recognizing when someone is building something that compounds quietly over decades. Elon is not optimizing for the next quarter. He's optimizing for the next century. So no, Mars is not abandoned. Mars is being prepared carefully, systematically, and far more intelligently than it appears on the surface. Moon first is not a detour. It's the on-ramp. That's where I'll leave it for today. If this perspective helped you see the bigger picture, I appreciate you being here and thinking long-term with me. Thanks for watching, and as always, enjoy life with Tesla. See you in the next one.